Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is Weebo Jones here with the Liberal Sanity Project, or LISP, as he is okay with being called?
Lispy, but yeah.
Lispy? Lispy? Okay, sorry. And Hey Dude 77, they are here to debate about the Electoral College. Do you guys want to talk about actually, hang on. Give me a sec. I got to go through the rules. And for those of you who don't know what the Electoral College is, it's the process by which the Constitution has established we elect our president. It's seen as a compromise between popular vote and I believe popular vote.
Congressional appointment.
Congressional appointment. Thank you. And the rules are here. I'm sure that the debaters will get into it a little bit more on what the Electoral College is. But the rules for tonight are we're going to go about an hour minimum, an hour and a half, maybe maximum. Swearing is absolutely on the table. So, gentlemen, start your swear jars. But the swearing at each other, not so much. If that happens, I get to step in. Also, if there's interrupting and blood sports, I get to step in and smack them around a bit with my power of the internet. And the last thing that I get to step in about is that they have to be frugal with their time and their words, so no one gets to be a conversation dominator or what have you.
I'm very disappointed that you missed the opportunity to say the power of my schlong.
Well, Lispy doesn't understand the inside.
The trap joke? Yeah, no, I've followed you enough.
Yeah, no, he doesn't understand. So without further ado, who would like to let the other person go first in talking about their position?
Well, Hey Dude challenged me, so I suppose he should go first. Is that agreeable?
Sure. Just state what opinion you're taking, and I guess your most strongest arguments for it, I guess. We could do that, or however it is you want to formulate your opening statement is fine with me.
I got a mixture of a couple questions, and I do have a statement on what I agree with and disagree with, and I did have a question to start it out because I did want to double check and make sure I clarified his position on this. But now my thing is with the Electoral College is because I do not believe we should be the United States of New York City and California. And if I remember correctly, LSP said he wanted to go to a majority rules vote. Am I correct?
Yes. One person, one vote.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's your position, Hey Dude, on that, and then Lispy, like your position with regards to the Electoral Colleges.
Yeah. So firstly, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm looking forward to like a real productive debate, and I thank you for moderating. So the argument that goes like so the argument against the Electoral College is that it values the citizens who are guaranteed equal protection under the law. It values them differently. And by that, I mean that the population of your state, as it goes up, the number of votes required to equal one electoral vote also go up. So if you're from a small state, you require less votes to be equal to one electoral vote than you are if you're from a large state. So my issue is that the Electoral College upends equality and democracy.
I can kind of see your point with that. Put it this way, it makes sense, but I disagree slightly because, like, now I live in Colorado, and I'm going off the top of my head. I haven't researched this in depth. I'm going off the top of my head based on an amendment to our Constitution that was put on the ballot last election cycle about during the Trump Hillary campaign.
Yeah,
one of our ballot votes was to set it up so that forgive me, I stuttered a little bit. I've been having a stuttering problem today.
Take your time, man.
One of the things that was put on there was a deal so that you have to have a certain amount of votes from certain districts of the state in order to get something passed. The reason they were talking about doing that is because we did, to my knowledge, I think it is a one person, one vote system. I might be wrong, but even if I am wrong, I do know that the system is basically in favor of the cities. Now, we have Interstate 25 that basically divides the state in half, and a majority of our population lives along that road, which includes Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Castle Rock, Fort Collins. A majority of our population lives there because 25, everything north of Pueblo is city after city. So a majority of our population is there, and if they get all the votes, basically they just have to pander a certain bill to that section, and they can get a bill passed. For example, they passed a bill that is gradual, but they're slowly raising our minimum wage, which will eventually be at $12 an hour in a couple of years. The problem with that is the counties like where I live, because I grew up in the rural area, we didn't have a say, basically, because the inner city people, especially where there's poor people that are working McDonald's jobs, which I will admit it includes a mixture of people that just got stuck there because of bad circumstances, who I do sympathize with, and people that were just too lazy to actually better their lives. Those people are going to be voting for it, but they make up a majority of the cities. Out in the counties where people work for a living and where people own their own businesses and can't afford to put that much money towards a couple of the 2 or 3 employees they have, it's going to screw them over. A couple people I know might have to close shop when it gets to $12 an hour, but because it was so uneven, we didn't get a say. Otherwise, that bill probably wouldn't have passed.
Yeah.
But
okay.
So does that make sense? Is my problem with it?
That makes sense with your problem with politics in general. Like, you describe the process of getting elected as pandering, right, to the majority. That's politics in general. It doesn't matter who's running on what. The entire goal of politics is to pander. But I do have this response because I anticipated this argument. And you can get with Weebo Jones afterwards for sources on this, because I sent her my notes.
Yeah, I have all of your sources opened up right now, but I can't. Here's the thing: I can't like copy and paste.
That's fine. You can send them the link. You can share it with them afterwards. Cool. But please do it afterwards, because I don't want to.
Yeah, no, of course. We'll
circumventing my arguments immediately. So your argument is basically that California and New York will decide. And this is the same argument I ran in with Sinatra says. Okay, this claim that without the Electoral College, we would be at the mercy of California and New York is completely without merit. So what I did was I took the total population of the 10 largest cities in this country, and I added it together, and it's 21 million people. The total number of votes in 2016 was 135 million people. So if you honestly believe that a candidate could win president by jetting from LA to New York to Chicago, you have to explain to me where the other 100 and something million votes are going to come from. Sir?
Sorry, it's muted for 1 second, and I did miss the first part of that. I apologize for that. Could you repeat that first part of that argument?
Okay, my argument was divided into 2 parts. One argument was that the nature of politics is to pander. So if your issue is that politicians pander to the majority, your issue is with politics in general and not the Electoral College. My second contention was that if you assume that California and New York alone decide the election, you have to explain where the other 100 and something million votes come from in a national election. Because when I took the population from the 10 most populous cities and I added them together, and there was 21 million people. And that's assuming all of them vote, which we know that they don't. The total voting population, the total voting population from 2016 was like 135 million people. So there's 100+ million gap that you have to explain where that's going to come from if this is your argument.
Thank you.
Can I interject just for a hot second? So the chat does have a few questions. Would you like to answer them like at the next lull in conversation, or how do you guys want to exactly answer that? It's your debate, so I'm just leaving it up to you.
I would rather reserve the questions for later. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, later towards the end, or later as in
yes.
when, like, okay. Gotcha.
Why don't you tell us why don't you tell us 15 minutes before you're ready to stop, and we'll just take questions.
Okay,
sure.
Will do. Chat, you got that? I will compile all of your questions, so long as they're relevant.
Real quick, because I will forget to ask this if I don't ask now. Weebo, if you get a super chat, do you want to interrupt us to read, or are you going to save those for last?
Is it okay if I interrupt to read, Lispy?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
And if I happen to keep talking because I don't realize you said something, which I have done before, I do apologize in advance. Just let me know.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Don't worry about it, dude.
Okay.
I think it's your turn to rebuttal. Unless we had something else to say.
Nope. Wait on the response.
Yeah, I'm trying to. My first question: where did you get those numbers for the cities and everything?
Give me 1 second. So, hang on, because I actually have to load up my Word document that I sent to her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I did was I got the total population of the 10 cities from Ballotpedia, and I got the total number of votes cast in 2016 from 270 to win, which is the pollster site.
Okay. Let me start off with this question because this might make a little bit of a difference in that. For example, when you typed in Los Angeles, does that mean just within the city limits of Los Angeles itself, or does that encompass the entire surrounding area? Because there's 50 miles of city every direction outside of Los Angeles, excluding when you go towards the ocean.
Okay, so what you're saying is Los Angeles is bigger than Los Angeles?
No, I mean, put it this way: what I got as far as population goes is I can't remember exactly how many counties, but basically when I looked at it, what it showed was that the majority of the population, it wasn't Los Angeles itself. I say that just to encompass that area because that's the only city known in that area nationwide. But the thing that I looked up that explained that, sorry, excuse me. The thing I looked up that explained that, it included the county that Los Angeles is in, but also the surrounding counties like San Bernardino County. Yeah. It included the population that stretches outward because there are quite a few million people out inside that area. I will look up the exact number, but that vicinity is included. And that's the same thing for like New York City. And it also included major cities like Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, and like really large major cities. That's where our majority population was concentrated. And okay, if the majority population is concentrated there, now I'm not saying that like I'm going to use Clinton and Trump as the example for for an election, just so that we don't have to make something up. But for example, what it looked like was basically Trump could have gone to Los Angeles and vicinity and pandered to them, then gone to New York City and vicinity, pandered to them, then maybe gone to Denver, Seattle, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Right.
Could have just gone to those major cities and pandered to those people. And let's pretend for sake of argument that it was just to the people that were in the city, like nobody from the area came in. Those people would make up enough to possibly get him a win, and he wouldn't have to worry about the rural states because we're just subjugated to whatever the city wants.
Yes. So, I mean, again, this is a problem with campaigning itself and not necessarily the Electoral College. I mean, I can see how it's related. Let me put it like this. If your contention is that the Electoral College by design protects small states from big states, is that a fair summary of what you just said?
Yeah, I think it would be.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Is that a fair summary of what you just said?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Okay. The argument that is that the Electoral College exists to protect the small states from the big states, which is to say the rural states from the urban states. The Electoral College is not in the least protective of small states, any more so than it is of big states. The smallest states in the union received about as much in political pandering, as you phrased it, as the biggest states in the 2016 election cycle. Candidates, neither Donald Trump nor Hillary Clinton visited Alaska or Wyoming or Nebraska, the smallest states in our union. What they visited was states like Iowa, which is where they take like ethanol plunges, because Iowa matters more in the election than the biggest or the smallest states.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that because like that is pretty accurate for certain places, but it's also slightly inaccurate for a couple others because one of the reasons that Donald Trump won is because he went to a lot of states that most politicians ignore. Like Hillary Clinton, she went to Michigan once. Donald Trump went there I think 3 times, I want to say.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He went to there like 3 times, and he visited, I can't say exactly how many states, but I know he went to a lot of states that I never thought I would see him visit.
Yeah.
So it's some of those states that are rural enough, you're just like, how do you even know the name of that state? You live in New York City. But and that's part of why I support the Electoral College, because I know it's not perfect. I will agree with you on one thing. It is not perfect at all, and it does exclude some states from some problems, like, for example, what you said, Wyoming. I do agree that it would need adjusted to be more fair, which I can talk about that in a little bit. But like, my point is, he's to my knowledge, he's got to go to more states in order to get more votes, because like there were all those states like North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and those states beyond the blue wall that, a couple of them, but not all of them, but some of those.
Can I interject here?
Yeah, sure.
What you just said is factually incorrect. That he had to go to more states to win. He didn't. He had to go to swing states to win. And that is a crucial difference. The Electoral College doesn't make it so that candidates must care about states. If this were, I mean, I get the states' rights argument, but I could even buy the states' rights argument if the states were regarded as equal, but they're not. If you believe in states' rights, you have to explain to me why the states don't all have equal power. If this is a question of rights, what right does Florida have to be more powerful electorally than California?
Okay, like that, I will. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Should I just answer some questions while he's doing this?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask if you could do. A good night guy asks, LSP, do you believe someone in New York City or LA would empathize with a Wyoming farmer?
No, probably not.
Okay. Malcolm from the North asks, if they can show an example of any country in the West has a direct democracy voting system at a federal level, and if not, why they think there isn't any.
There is. It's Switzerland. Switzerland uses direct democracy.
Okay. Slightly off topic, I guess, but do either of you think felons should be able to vote? And that was clarified by felons out of prison, expunged, and such.
Oh, wow. I'm like of 2 minds on this. So there is the states' rights argument that I sympathize with, where states should be allowed to decide who their constituents are. But there's the liberal side of me that says once they've done their service to the country, or I shouldn't say service, I should say their debt. Once they've paid their debt to the country, they should have their rights restored. Voting is what a productive, civilized, good citizen does. So it seems to me that we're just going to be locking them in a life of crime if we deny them from the rights of everybody else.
Okay. I would absolutely concur with that. That does make absolute sense. Hey, dude, you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, my grandma was just giving us some instructions for cooking. I'm not gonna lie, I pretty much agree with him 100% on that. The only thing I would add in is no illegal immigrants unless they have started the citizenship process or have already become citizens.
Yeah, they actually can't vote unless they're citizens.
Was that all for questions that you were willing to answer this time, or do you guys want?
Yeah, we can get back in it right now.
All right, by all means.
I apologize for that, but anyway, okay, I just went blank. What was the last thing?
Oh, the argument was I don't remember how, but we kind of pivoted to a states' rights argument, which you tried to say like the candidate was required to win. You know, the Electoral College requires the candidate to visit the most states, right? That wasn't the argument. Like, that's not true. The candidate must visit swing states. Swing states become more important than any other state. So if the argument is that the Electoral College is there to protect states or states' rights, I want you to tell me what right Florida has as a state. What right does Florida have to be more powerful in terms of the Electoral College than a state like California or Ohio or anything else?
Okay, you did cross into the territory that I will agree with you on, where I do think the system itself needs tweaked a bit, because that is kind of the problem, because they have an inaccurate amount of number for like the electoral votes that you're supposed to get from certain states, because that does make it very uneven. Like California has like 55, Rhode Island has like 4. Like that's where I will agree that it's uneven because it makes some states less powerful than others.
Can I interject here? I'm a little. I'm sorry. I keep asking and then just interjecting. Can I, Weebo?
Yeah, by all means. If
Okay.
Haydude's okay with that, Heydude, do you?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah. So here's my confusion. I keep pointing out all these flaws that makes both states and citizens unequal, and you keep saying you agree. If you keep agreeing that we should be making a system more equal, why don't you just commit to a one-person, one-vote system?
It's the unevenness of the population based on like what I told you about, including the counties outside of certain cities in the vote. Because, like, for example, Denver. Denver's got a certain population. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but if you incorporate everything that's inside the loop of Highway 470, which is the turnpike that surrounds the suburban area, you also include the population of Aurora, Littleton, Louisville, Commerce City. You got a whole bunch of population inside that. And that's where I think some of those city populations are a little bit misleading because like Los Angeles doesn't include cities like Ontario, Compton, Long Beach. It doesn't include stuff like that. It's just Los Angeles itself. And that's where the population indifference I was talking about comes from. And I would want a system that's a little more equal to the people in the rural areas because their voices usually aren't heard as much.
I'm a little confused. If you want a system that's more equal, why wouldn't you just make it so it's everybody's vote counts equally?
Because, personally,
let me frame it like this.
Go ahead.
Okay, because let's say you're not take Denver off the map right now. Let's say instead of Denver, Colorado, you're in Austin, Texas. Okay, which is what I am a blue state. I'm sorry, I'm a red state Democrat. So because the Electoral College is based on a winner take all system, my vote will never count towards my candidate. Okay, and I'm willing to bet that if go through the chat, there's going to be a lot of people who are red state Democrats or blue state conservatives or anything to that effect. Equality is a central tenet of any liberal democratic institution. I find it unjust when supposedly equal citizens do not have their votes count at all. But because it's winner take all, the votes of people who cast their ballots for a candidate in a state where it will never go that way, it doesn't count at all. So I mean, it's a system so flawed that a person can be president with only 22% of the popular vote. You cannot possibly proclaim yourself as equal or being equally represented if 78% of people can have their will overturned.
Yeah, which is something I can agree with.
Then why don't you support a one person, one vote?
I'm trying to work on articulating my thought. I'm not gonna lie. This is my first debate, like on a live stream, and
yes, sir.
Okay, that's weird. Anyway, this is legit my first debate. I'm picking a topic that I have a decent amount of knowledge in, that I agree and disagree on some points, just kind of to practice and work on articulating my thoughts, basically, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to make sure I articulate this properly because I see where you're confused. I'm just working on how to articulate it. Like, let me give you the example as to like how I would do it. I bring you back to that district deal I told you about in Colorado.
Yeah.
That means for like my district has let's even compare two smaller areas. If based on the number of people in Otero County versus the population of Pueblo County, which Pueblo County has a city, they can vary just because of their population size. They can very easily outvote Otero County, even if Otero County is 100% in favor of a certain bill.
Okay, why is that bad?
Because, for example, certain things that would work for Pueblo would not work for Otero County. Otero County is a very rural area, and it is 90% farmers.
Okay, so
Pueblo County is a city environment, so you're going to have more things that involve the city, like office jobs, call centers, stuff like that.
Sure. people are going to vote for their own interests. But here's what I don't understand. Why would you want to segregate interests on a national level? Like a national election is our one chance to come together as Americans, as a whole of the people, and have a referendum about what our destiny should be. The Electoral College makes sure that only a select few of us can decide anything.
Which is why I would want to change it to a certain, like, put it this way, like, let's pretend for sake of argument that each state had equal say in who gets the president. Like, for example, Colorado, if we voted for Trump, Trump gets 1 vote. If Wyoming votes for Clinton, Clinton gets 1 vote. Like,
okay, so let me ask you, because I'm trying to formulate your arguments for you, because I think you're having a hard time. So let me broach this to you. Would you rather the electoral votes be apportioned by congressional districts?
You would have to define congressional districts.
The districts by which Congress is defined. Right. So you have certain representatives in a certain place, and those people vote on their congressmen to go and represent them in Congress. So if you look at a congressional map of the United States, it's a bunch of squiggly lines all over the place.
I may agree with that. I'm going to have to look up a map of that before I can say whether I agree with the system in place or not. But I probably, but that's one I probably won't agree with the system in place. But I would agree with having that be a thing, just as long as it's evened out so that people get more of an equal say.
Well, you keep saying equal say. It's not an equal say. Do you know what gerrymandering is? Have you ever heard this term?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so every 10 years, our Constitution requires a census to be taken so that we know precisely how much congressional representation certain areas get. So the districts that divide these people are drawn by state legislatures. A problem occurs when state legislatures can draw these districts and they can carve out certain areas in a way they don't like. Basically, if they want to divide Austin from being a very blue block that might have 3 or 4 congressmen that are all Democrats, what people can do is simply chop it in 4 and encompass all the surrounding counties around it and basically make it 4 Republicans instead, even though that's not strictly representative of what what Austin would look like. This is called gerrymandering. You're familiar with this now, or does this make sense?
Somewhat. I'm trying to formulate exactly what it means
Okay, this is something you'll have to revisit, because it doesn't sound like you understand your own points, and I don't say that to be mean. But the problem with doing a district by district basis is we run into the gerrymandering problem. And since gerrymandering is not going away anytime soon, and neither is the Electoral College for that matter, it would be a bad way to do it. Like, if you want citizens, you keep talking about equality. If you want people to be equal, you would go with a 1 person, 1 vote system.
So I think at this point it would be a little bit more productive if I kind of asked a few questions to kind of refocus it, and so that we could
sure
figure out and decide where it is that we are within the debate. So one question that was asked in the chat by Mr. Misanthropic, and it was actually a question that I had too as well, is what changes do you both believe should be made to the Electoral College system? But mine was more broad, as in the system of voting as a whole, in order to make it more ideal for the voter and for our democracy. I think that might help kind of center the argument or make it a little bit less confusing for the audience themselves.
Up to you, hey dude.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and explain that, and I'm going to actually change one of my statements and apologize for saying it this way, because I think that might be where I made a mistake.
Okay.
Now, I don't necessarily want it to be equal person to person. I prefer it to be more equal on a, like, personally, I would say county by county for each state in order to make it more even, because, like, you could probably shorten it to city even, maybe. An argument could possibly be made for that, but based on where I grew up and how I know things, counties work the best because, like, each county has a different need. Like, my county's not going to need the same thing as the next county. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So personally, my system, if I could just scrub it all and say this is the system we're going to use, it would be, well, okay, the population of one county goes in and they vote. And let's say my county votes for Trump. Trump gets 1 vote. My next county over votes for Clinton. Clinton gets 1 vote. Now, let's say we could tally up the votes for Colorado based on county. And let's say Trump won in Colorado. That would be 1 vote for Trump. And then let's move over to a blue state like California. Everybody, based on the county vote and everything, it came down to it, and California voted for Clinton. That would be 1 vote for Clinton. And then we take all the votes. Then we take all the votes from all 50 states and we tally them, and 1 vote, 1 state. That would decide our president, whoever won that. And on a side note, this is kind of irrelevant, but I would also add a thing on the ballot that says do-over. Because I think we can all agree that we would have voted for that in this election if that was an option.
Well, that's just to point out what would be wrong with that is that it's an election. You don't get a do-over necessarily. If your vote is your vote, that would kind of undermine the whole process of democracy as a whole.
Well, I'll explain. That's a little irrelevant. I want to get back to the debate, so I'll explain that a little later if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Okay, so the question was what I would do with the Electoral College.
Yes.
I've made it clear I would abolish it if I could, but seeing as to how that's not very likely, I'm actually an advocate of something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. To abolish the Electoral College would require to amend the Constitution, which is a very lengthy and difficult process. However, the Constitution allows for states to decide the manner in which they can appoint their electoral votes. So the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is states agreeing that whoever wins the national popular vote gets all of their electoral votes. It's not a one-person, one-vote system, but it's the next best thing that could realistically happen.
Okay. Hey, did you have any questions?
I'd have to need a little more information on that to see if that would work or not.
I'll send you a wiki on it.
Yeah, that might make a little more sense to me to read that up.
Then Hangouts, dude.
Alrighty, thanks.
I guess if you don't have a response to that, I can ask another question if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'll push
actually,
it forward. I was trying to figure out where to start.
I kind of want to get back to the debate. Is it all right if I broach you guys with a question?
Oh yeah, by all means, go ahead, please.
So, okay, so the state of Wyoming has more electoral power than California, even though it has 3 electoral votes and California's got 55. The votes per person in Wyoming to equal 1 electoral vote is like a 4th that of California. It's actually 143,000 votes to equal 1 electoral vote in Wyoming and 500,000 in California. Okay, so I want to ask if this sounds like a fair and ideal and just system to you. So imagine if we required 4 white votes to equal 1 black person's vote. And imagine if we made these institutionally, we made races unequal instead of states unequal. You guys would be pissed, right? Like, but you can get you can do the exact same arguments that you guys would use, right? And I noticed chat saying we're not a democracy. It's about what about mob rule? You could use the same argument. We're protecting the minority from the tyranny of the majority. That's why whites have to have their votes count for less. We're not a democracy. That's why their votes have to count for less. Instead of California and New York like deciding our leader, you could make the same argument that it would be Eugene and Cletus. Does that sound like a system you guys would want to champion?
Not necessarily, because like my position and specifically where I disagreed with you on was, I don't deny that our electoral college system has its problems, because I do believe the states at the very least should be equal. But I do agree with you that it's uneven for like the person itself.
Okay, well let's go with the states argument then. Why should states be equal? Like, here's what I don't understand. I mean, you keep trying to dance around this way of making it a 1 vote or 1 person, 1 vote system, and it's a weird entitlement thing. So, I mean, why can't your ideas just win on their own merit? Why can't you just compete in a marketplace of ideas? Like under a one-person, one-vote system, your ideas will have to compete country-wide instead of on a swing state basis. This forces you to make your ideas have national appeal. So explain it to me. That I want to know why you would want an electoral college to protect your ideas.
I think I might be losing part of this because I don't know the exact populations of the certain areas that I'm thinking of, but
I sent you the populations on Hangouts from Ballotpedia.
how do I open? That's how I open that. Yeah, I'm gonna give that a read as I talk about this.
You don't really need the populations to answer that question, though. I mean, why their own merits?
Lispy, you broke out, not broke out, but you kind of broke up a little bit there. Can you repeat the last part?
Okay. So this doesn't require knowing the population of states. What I want to know is why can't your ideas just compete on their own merits? Why do you want an electoral college to protect rural people from urban people? Why can't you just have your ideas have national appeal?
Specifically because trying to articulate this properly. Let me go back to that example of Pueblo County and the county I grew up in, Otero County. The difference between those two would be population. More people in Pueblo County versus less people in Otero County. The fact that there's more people in Pueblo County, population-wise, if you swing them all in the direction, like for example, Trump and Clinton go to Pueblo County, that would be all they would have to go to. They wouldn't have to scoot over to Otero County and try to convince them to vote for Trump. Trump would just have to go to Pueblo County and be like, here, vote for me for this reasons. And if he swings them, he's got the vote and he didn't have to bother with us. And Pueblo's got different needs than what Otero County needs.
Okay.
So then we are then subject to whatever, basically that sets us up to where we're subject to whatever Pueblo decides. And Pueblo doesn't know anything about our life. I'm not even going to lie. Half of Pueblo doesn't even know my county exists. So they don't know anything about farming. So if they regulate some on farming that screws over farmers, the farmers just got to deal with it because they don't have the population to get a majority vote to say, no, this isn't going to work for us. Like, does that make sense as to what I'm trying to say?
No, I mean, it doesn't answer my question.
Maybe I misunderstood your question.
Can I maybe try to because I feel like you both are talking a little bit past each other. You're not just
please interject.
Exactly. The way that I understand both of your arguments is, I believe Lispy is trying to argue that the fact that we have an electoral college, it means that certain underpopulated states' votes count for more of a percentage or more of a fraction than that of people in states that are more populated. Am I articulating this correctly?
That's one of my arguments, but the question I was asking him was simply, it was a very simple, abstract question.
Yeah, no.
Why can't your ideas win on their own merits?
Well, and then I was going to kind of articulate exactly what Hey Dude's argument was, and that was specifically that what works in one county might not work in another county, but if that county, for instance, has a higher population, that would greatly disadvantage them if they were in the same congressional district. And I don't think he knows that he's arguing with regards to the congressional district and the problems that they have with each other.
Is that your argument, sir?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
So does
that clarify things for you both?
No, because it brings me back full circle.
Okay.
Because basically this is in effect, the Electoral College protects my ideas, and that's why I want it, because people don't vote the way I want them to vote, so I need protections.
Essentially, I would agree that. Essentially, I would agree. But putting it that way, yes, I would essentially agree that yes, some ideas need protection. Because going back into the two counties, let's put it this way. I'm trying to think of something a little simpler so I make sense. Okay. Let's say go into the farm. Like we've had a drought every few years for a while now. Now, let's say down in the farming country, they need they need a certain amount of water to take care of their crops, make sure their stuff grows, because that's what they make a living. And if they don't grow a good crop, they'll be broke. They need a certain amount of water, so they need a certain amount of water to do that, and that's what the county is voting on. Now, let's say that they are subject to, and like I said, they got a lower population than Pueblo County, to my knowledge. So going over to Pueblo County, and between the two counties, it's a majority vote. Let's say that for sake of argument. So in Pueblo County, they are going to vote on how much water Otero County gets, and they're just saying we're going to give them a lesser amount because over here we have more people. And let's say they have a dumb reason for it, like they want to fill people's swimming pools and stuff like that and just give people water for the sake of convenience, because the people in Pueblo are easily swayed in the direction of what they want versus what Otero County needs.
Okay.
So then Pueblo County is like, well, I want my pool. I don't care about the farmers, because I'm not gonna lie, some people out here are that dumb. So then everybody votes and they say Otero County does not get the water that they want, but because Otero County had a smaller population than Pueblo County, they didn't even have a chance of getting a majority rules vote to tell Pueblo, no, we need this water, so let us have this water. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, but you're just repeating the same thing you said earlier. People aren't going to vote the way you want, right? They're going to vote in a way that damages you, which is that's not a very fair summation of your argument. And I'm trying to be a little bit more fair, but ultimately that's what it all boils down to. And I keep asking this question, and I'm not getting a straight answer. Why does it matter if people don't vote the way you want? Like, I mean, let me put it another way. Let me put it this way. I understand the if that it handicaps your ideas, but you have to, on its own rules, any victory you would have. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
You might need to say that again. You roboted a little bit.
Yeah, you were roboting a little bit.
Okay. I understand the argument in favor of the Electoral College in that it handicaps your ideas. You have to acknowledge that by its own rules, it can take away any victory you might have. So if you're against people not voting the way you want, you have to understand that the Electoral College can choose to appoint somebody president who will have no regard for what your interests are. Okay, let me
go ahead.
Let me expand on the problems. Okay, the problems with okay. If your candidate wins the most electoral votes in November, your victory can be taken away in December because the electors can vote how they like. So this again brings me back full circle to this problem. If people aren't going to vote the way you want, why would you want a select few elite to vote on your behalf, who might not even vote in your interest at all?
Okay, hang on. I think I found where we're talking past each other. Are you arguing more so on the... are you... Okay, like, I know that each state has a certain amount of electors that are supposed... Like, hopefully I'm articulating this properly, but I know that we got a certain amount of electors so that, like, if... California, I think it has 55 electoral votes. So that means that chosen electors need to vote for Trump 55 times, right?
No. See, this is a common misunderstanding that people need to learn, that the electors are free to vote how they wish. They don't have to vote the way the state votes. These are called faithless electors. These people actually exist. They will vote the way they want instead of the way their state votes. So if I were interested in a coup d'etat in this country, the Electoral College is where I would do it, because you only need to sway 270 electors to appoint somebody president. Really, it's not even an election. There's an appointment for president. Your vote is just a suggestion.
Okay, I think I figured out where we're talking past each other, because where I was disagreeing with you on was the one person, one vote thing. Due to, like I said, a bigger population in one place could screw over a population in another place if that place does not have enough people that may have a chance.
But that could happen under
vote.
any system. Again, that could happen under any system. So you have to. I mean, that's really not a justification to me.
So hang on. Let me see if I can kind of get this ball rolling. So what Lispy is saying is essentially in the Electoral College, you're essentially putting the Band-Aid on a problem that's always going to be there so long as you live in a democracy where we vote for people and the more popular, but the more attractive candidate wins, someone is going to always lose in that sense. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, hey, dude, I think the question is, how can you reconcile that Band-Aid if it's a problem that's always going to persist in a democracy?
I think we would agree with this part because, like I was going to say, this is where I think we're misinterpreting each other. I was arguing for against the one person, one vote thing. I think he was talking about the electors that he has to sway to get the vote. Am I hearing you correctly? Like the electors that are supposed to cast their votes that could overturn? Because, sorry.
Okay. I don't know.
Do you want me to ask some questions to get us out of this funk?
Okay, here, let me
please do.
Okay. Hey, dude. And Lispy, would the communists in space ask, would your presidential elections be fair with a proportional representation system? I'm just going down the line.
Yeah. If I can. If I were dictator of the world and a benevolent dictator, I would just completely scrap our entire system of government. I would use a proportional representation system. I think a congressional district system is asinine and antiquated and allows for a severe degradation in that we're seeing with gerrymandering. A proportional representation system is precisely the more inclusive option. And let me expand on this. You have people who are libertarians who vote Republican out of necessity. You have Green Party people who vote Democrat out of necessity. A proportional representation system would give them a seat at the table. It would more accurately represent what this country looks like.
Hey, dude, your opinion?
Put it this way, I think I might agree with that, but I'm just trying to make sure I put it in my head in a way that it'll make sense. Okay, now, I'm gonna do this in the form of a question that might help out a little bit. Okay, so my argument of Pueblo County and Otero County's populations, where Pueblo County has a population that basically they have a population that's high enough that even if 100% of Otero County votes in favor of a law, if even half the people in Pueblo County vote against that law, Otero County doesn't stand a chance. Does that make sense?
As it stands now, but under a proportional representation, you would have half and half occupying the seats in the legislature, right?
So for example, like 2 people from Otero and 2 people from Pueblo, right?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's say you have 10 people. 5 of them vote one way and 5 of them vote another. They're voting for 2 district seats. Okay. Because their votes are split and it's not a winner take all, there would be 2 seats divided proportionally to what the voters voted for. Do you understand that? Okay. Do you know what a proportional representation system is?
I'm trying to, the way you're explaining it, I'm not gonna lie, I should know what you're talking about. I don't know why it's not clicking in my head, to be honest.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, man. Can we go to the next question?
Yeah, I can do the next question. Let me just delete that one. Another question on proportional representation, but we're already hitting a dead end with that. Malcolm from the North asks, I've heard that geographically California is 50-50 Democratic Republican. Northern Cali basically doesn't get noticed at all. If that's true, would a direct democracy benefit North California?
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. I mean, that is exactly the problem with the Electoral College is because, firstly, it's not 50-50. Let's say it's 55-40. It's 55 Democrat, 45 Republican. This was how it would stand now. That 45 who votes Republican never has their vote count because it's winner-take-all system. So every electoral vote from California will always go to the Democrat, and their voices will count for 0. A direct democracy system ensures that their vote counts just as much as the Democrats' vote.
Okay, here's my question on that. Okay, now I'm gonna base this off the top. I'm gonna just go off of invented numbers because I don't know the actual population, but this might help me articulate my argument a little better. Okay, Northern California, like he said, is more Republican. Southern California is more Democrat. And I know Southern California has a majority of the population. So, damn it, I suck at this.
Okay.
Do you want me to go on to the next question?
Let me ask you this.
Give me like.
what a one?
Oh, go ahead. If this doesn't work, I'm gonna grab a pen and count something in my head so that I can try to articulate this a little better because I might need something in front of my eyes to help me.
If I can.
Yes.
I'm going to make this recommendation, and I don't mean this to be mean. Don't misunderstand me, please. I think you should take some time. I'll answer some questions. We can both answer some questions. But while we're doing that, I think you should start writing down your arguments and just read them to me.
Yeah, that might help. I do apologize. I meant to make a couple of notes on a few things, but I've been with my daughter all day. I got back 5 minutes before we start. Weebo sent the link.
Yeah, just take your time, man. Just calm down, formulate your arguments, hit me with them.
All right.
Okay, give me like 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay, so I guess we'll just answer some questions. Remember, chat, if you have any questions throughout the debate, I have been compiling them since the start of this, and the debaters are perfectly game to answer the question. Adam Mangold just asked this question recently. I thought that the Electoral College could just vote for whoever they wanted. Question mark.
I believe I said that earlier.
You have to remember that not everyone has been here for the entirety of the debate, so there are some people who are probably
fucking rewind, you lazy little shits.
That's no way to talk to the audience.
Okay, I love you guys. I'm kidding, but I did say that earlier. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. William Harris or Will Harris asked about your stances on illegal immigration. I know it's not relevant, but I mean, it did come up for a little bit. So while we're waiting for him to write down his arguments, I guess we can talk about that since it was brought up a little bit.
Well, I don't think anybody is like an advocate of illegal immigration as in the act.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who claim that liberals just want to open the borders severely misunderstand the liberal position. They're building a straw man. I can't speak for everybody else on this issue. Maybe that is true for some people. So let me try to be fair to them. We have 12 million illegal immigrants in this country, and most of them are not criminals. Most of them are law-abiding. Most of them work or go to school or make themselves productive in some way or another. Immigration is a net benefit for this economy. So my position is that we should do what is smartest, in that it doesn't make sense to deport 12 million consumers for our economy. It would hurt us economically. It would cost way too much money. You know, I'm all for practical solutions. Building a wall is not practical. Deporting 12 million people is practical.
So then can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
Should we work towards essentially giving them citizenship?
Yes.
Like to a reasonable degree, not necessarily those illegal immigrants who are more than just illegal immigrants, but more so here for more than malicious purposes, in a sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, nobody's a fan of giving like violent felons, felonious immigrants citizenship, but it would be the smart thing to do, because not all of them, just as a byproduct of being illegal immigrants, not all of them are capable of paying the same taxes that a citizen can pay. So it would make sense economically to give them citizenship,
And then,
or at least a pathway to citizenship, which they don't get.
I actually just thought of a question that would kind of connect this back to our conversation about the Electoral College and about voting and such in general. Would giving them citizenship, because they can't vote until they are citizens, as you said earlier in the debate, would that greatly alter the way that our political system works, in the sense that the constituency would change?
It might, but there's a counter to this. So this is the argument against the Electoral College, because if we continue to keep the Electoral College, Texas will eventually become blue. And this is a reality you guys have to reconcile, that as Hispanics come in and Hispanics breed as Hispanics do, I can tell you as a Hispanic, we do this, we like sex.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah. Never mind. Texas will become a blue state, and that will make the Electoral College a very comfortable blue wall, and you guys will never win. So in the interest of giving you a leg up, you should favor abolishing the Electoral College.
Okay. I like how we rounded that out. It makes for nice content.
Yeah.
Would you like to go on to another question, different topic? I know we already talked about gerrymandering, but if you had anything else to add,
whatever you got, I'll hear it.
Okay. Well, I literally just have a comment that asks, have they spoke about gerrymandering? Yes, they have. Do you have any solutions, like short of completely abolishing the Electoral College and congressional districts? Because, you know, that's probably not the most viable solution, but do you have any solutions that would kind of make it so that that wouldn't be as big of an issue?
Yes. Well, I brought this up earlier. The most viable solution is something called like the I'm sorry, give me 1 second. The most viable solution is something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is just an agreement between states that they will award their electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote.
Okay. And a follow-up question on the immigration policy and the giving people citizenship. Nope just asked, why would we give citizenship to 12 million people who are below the poverty line?
I don't think all 12 million of them are below the poverty line, but because it helps our economy. These 12 million have to work jobs, which are typically low-skill, low-labor jobs. I'm sorry, low-wage jobs. And as a byproduct of working those jobs, labor costs go down for business, which allows them to hire more people, which allows products to be cheaper, which raises the standard of living for everybody else.
Okay. Let me see. I'm looking at the questions because there are a few of them that have accumulated themselves over the course of the debate.
Yes.
I'm trying to find the more relevant ones that would be more relevant to this topic. By the way, dude, you're invited totally back on my channel if you would like to have a discussion about any one of these number of topics. And if anyone in the chat has
I appreciate it.
An axe to grind, not an axe to grind, but
oh, I'm sure they all will.
Argument against this gentleman, they're welcome to also come on if you guys want to arrange that with me. I'm on Twitter at Weebo Jones. Just hit me up. We can do something. I'm totally game for this. Believe it or not, I am having a little bit of fun.
Yeah,
and
this is
you
fun.
seem like quite a decent gentleman, so.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm actually a giant asshole, but I appreciate that.
No. Giant assholes make the best gentlemen, so we're good. Johnny Sandtrap asked, what happens when the majority turns minority and all the immigrant kids are old enough to vote after being conditioned with the kumbaya culture we Westerners have come to know and love? And I think you already kind of answered that with regards to, well, this is why we should abolish the Electoral College. But if you wanted to touch on that a little bit further,
I want to point out that by definition, the majority will never become the minority. The majority is the majority, and the minority is the minority. Semantic argument, I know.
All right, fair enough. And just remember, chat, I'm not here to debate. I'm here to ask questions and inquire and make sure everything's civil and going copacetic, as it were. So, again, if you want to champion your own arguments, hit me up. We'll talk. SpongeBob SquarePants was in my chat. Oh my goodness. he asked, how big of a threat do you think the alt-right is? It's not necessarily relevant, but it came up, so I thought, why not?
I don't think they're a threat electorally, except maybe that I think the president's a little bit too cozy with them. But I think they're a threat in that they can move the Overton window, which I'm not particularly a fan of.
And Hey Dude 77 sent me a super chat for $2. I'm ready when you are.
I saw.
Well, I have no qualms about you throwing me money, Hey Dude, but you are right here. You know that, right?
I thought that'd be funnier.
That's funny.
So, are you ready, Hey Dude?
Yeah, I think I wrote down an example. I didn't write down exactly the argument, but I wrote down an example.
Okay.
Because I have the numbers in front of me.
Just keep in mind, it is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at present, and we did say that the max this would go would be an hour and a half. So, unless you guys want to continue this, that's
yes.
Fine.
In 15 minutes, I propose we just go straight to questions.
Okay.
I'll agree with that. I'm gonna propose a question based on some two population numbers that I just looked up.
Okay.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to determine at this point if we are misunderstanding each other and actually agree on this, or if we're still.
I'm not misunderstanding you at all, but go for it.
Disagreeing. Okay. Now, I looked up the populations of Pueblo and Otero counties, and I'm going to use those as an example.
Okay.
To represent. Okay, the population of Pueblo County is 163,591 people. And Otero County is 18,343 people. So my question is, if we went to a one person, one vote scenario, and now this is just between the counties. Pretend both counties have to obey the laws of Pueblo County. That's not accurate, but this is help me explain my argument. Between those two counties, they have to obey the majority rule vote. Now, my argument against like a one person, one vote system would be that because you can see that Pueblo is disproportionately higher than Otero County, Otero County doesn't stand a chance if you convince Pueblo that idea A is better than idea B. And if idea B is something that Otero County desperately needs, Otero County has literally no chance of getting that passed unless they can convince Pueblo County that they need to give idea B the vote. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, how is that fair when you could just pander idea A to Pueblo County and they'll just ignore idea B due to the fact that Otero County has a tiny enough population and in Pueblo's eyes, they could just deal with it?
Okay, so I'm going to take your example and I'm going to replace Otero County, which is the small county, with the state of Wyoming, and Pueblo County, which is the large county, with the state of California. And the question was, how is that fair? It is fair because every citizen would have their vote count equally, even though there are more citizens who believe one thing than citizens who believe another. You are in a marketplace of ideas, so if you want your idea to win, you should have to lobby for it.
Okay, yes, I agree that they would have to lobby for it. The part where it comes into place is the part where it hurts, like Wyoming, is, for example, California. Majority of their votes will come from the city area.
Okay.
And the city area is not going to really know of or care about half the stuff that happens in a rural county, which is majority farm country.
And the same applies to the rural counties caring about what happens in the cities. It applies both ways.
Okay, I see. Okay, I kind of see what you're saying now. But it does. Yes, it would apply both ways. Ugh, crap! I just dropped my thought.
should we go to question time early or?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to question time early. I'm going to have to take this as a lesson and work on how to articulate my arguments better.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to answer this question. The question was a question of fairness. I will make this a general critique of the Electoral College and how it values fairness. Instead, the Electoral College is fundamentally unfair. Okay, and because it is structured in such a way that it awards states votes and not people votes, it disenfranchises a good half the population. If your contention is that under a one-person, one-vote system, we would, people would only campaign in cities, it sounds like a losing strategy. It sounds like a bad idea to run on winning only half the people. The Electoral College only reinforces this, except it only requires you to win certain states. So it's flawed, and it also denies Americans the right to vote. Not just right to get counted. Like, you still have the right to vote in California, even though your vote doesn't count as a Republican. It denies over 3 million American citizens who live in territories the right to vote at all. People from Puerto Rico who are American citizens cannot vote because of the Electoral College. People from the U.S. Virgin Islands cannot vote because of the Electoral College. If you are interested in fairness, you should want to abolish this system.
Okay, now let me address this point, because I think I kind of understand what you're saying. Now, I will agree with you that we should abolish the system. What I don't agree with is the one person, one vote. Like, my curiosity is, why wouldn't it be fair to set it to where, like, one county equals one vote? To even it out a little bit, but not necessarily set it to where population in certain areas.
Why wouldn't it be fair? Because we have more counties than 538. There's only 538 electoral votes, but there's several thousand counties. I don't know. Pick a number. So ultimately, you'd have to divide some counties. You'd have to divide the share of vote that some counties get. So you circle back to the same problem. People are going to be treated unfairly.
Okay, so the awkward silences are very, very dear and near to my heart, but I feel like maybe we should move on from the awkward silences. If you guys want to give your closing statements and we can answer questions, go to question time earlier, that would be fine with me, but it's up to you guys.
I'm going to agree with that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to agree with that, and my closing statement would be, like, I guess I did kind of lose this. I still don't really agree that a majority votes idea would work necessarily, but I'm going to take this as a lesson to try and properly articulate my arguments and maybe do a little more looking into the populations, because I think that's probably where I'm losing. I don't know the exact population of the urban areas versus the rural areas.
Okay.
I would get on board with that. Yeah, definitely do some more digging and preparation for your next debate.
I will say this. If you want to practice or you want to talk, hit me up on Twitter. We'll do it offline anytime you want. I'm perfectly game with helping you through this. I guess I would say this. I have described a system repeatedly that I see as unjust and unfair. I have described a system that values certain citizens as being worth more than other citizens. And at every point I have given you, you have agreed. So in that you have agreed, I would hope that I've simply given you something to think about, maybe something to consider for the future. You seem to want to inch your way to a one-person, one-vote system. You just don't feel like making that full commitment. Think of making that commitment on its merits. I fully encourage this, and I will add this as my last sentence. I appreciate both of you doing this. This was fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you hosting Weebo Jones, and I appreciate the challenge. Hey, dude. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, cool. And I'm totally open to answering questions too. I do also have an opinion, but I try to keep it as neutral as possible.
Just out of curiosity, since we're basically done, what's your opinion? I'm curious. if you don't mind saying.
So with regards to government in general, I'm actually more of a small government type of gal, which means that I think that most of the issues plaguing most of the states and local governments should be handled by those states and local governments, whereas the national government would probably do better and be more productive in the sense that if they only tackled big government issues like foreign policy and only the most important of constitutional domestic issues plaguing our nation. So I think that the United States is entirely too large to actually be considered a legitimate democratic society where every vote counts individually and there's no issues per any states that are smaller versus larger. I think that in order to solve that issue, presidential election should be focused less on, states issues, more on foreign policies that would affect our nation as a whole, just because the nature of the beast is such that it is too large to actually satisfy a good number of people. So that is my opinion. Yes, I think the Electoral College is necessary the way that we've set up our government, where the national government kind of intercedes in that respect and people depend on it as like the biggest event every 4 years to go out and vote and such. But I don't think that it is a very good solution at all. I do think that we should at the least alter it to be more helpful, and at the most maybe
alter it to what, like specifically?
Alter it to what specifically? You see, I don't have like a well thought out policy procedure that would assist that, but I do think we could start with the congressional districts, maybe altering those in a sense, or not altering those, but altering the way that we approach allotment of congressional districts. Maybe make it more permanent instead of as flexible as it is to this day. I think that's one of the biggest issues, and especially where a lot of corruption comes into play as well. Does that make sense?
Nope, but I'll take it.
Okay, fair enough. So I do have questions from the chat from over the course of the debate. Malcolm from the North asked, I've started to think that the Electoral College argument should be more focused on the underrepresented areas within certain states as opposed to state versus state. Which is, I guess, kind of what I said, maybe a little bit. But do with that what you will. Do you guys have any opinions on that?
Yeah, that's a one-person, one-vote system.
Okay.
The underrepresented people are the people who don't have their votes count for anything.
Okay. Hey, dude.
I would agree. I agree with that statement entirely. I just think me and LSP have different ideas as to how we would solve that problem.
Okay. SpongeBob SquarePants, the hard-hitting questions. What's your opinion of ISIS? Because
I fucking love ISIS.
Oh my god.
Allah Akbar!
Well, good to know. Good to know. All right. I will never ever meet you in public then, in person. So good to know.
My opinion on ISIS. No more sending the military over there. Get every gun-toting redneck from the rural states of the U.S. and just let them load their trucks and shotguns onto a boat. Just carry them over there and just tell them go to town. ISIS problem solved.
You guys don't even know how voting works. You expect me to trust you with a gun?
You don't need to vote to be able to hold a gun.
That's true. Any idiot can shoot a gun.
That's a different debate honestly, which is honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know your opinions on guns and stuff like that, but that might be a debate I'm better suited for because I have a little more knowledge on that. But
just surf my channel. I've got like 4 debates on it and like an essay. I'm sick of the topic.
I think the next time, hey dude, the next time that you do debate, I feel like before you actually get into the debate, make sure you have enough time to actually compile like maybe a spreadsheet or what have you, a list of facts and statistics that you're going to use or argumentation points at the very least. just to kind of make sure that we don't have a whole bunch of awkward silences again. Because as much as I love awkward silences, I don't think the audience was very happy about that.
I don't know what happened. Like, I was doing fine earlier in the day, and then as the day progressed, I started stuttering even more just because I could not force words out of my mouth.
Well, no, I don't think.
Don't worry about it, man.
I don't think it's necessarily a stuttering issue. I think it's more so you weren't. I don't think you adequately prepared for the.
Okay, but like there were two problems. Like you're right on that, but there were a couple times I was trying to say my words, and you ever get that thing where you have the thought in your head, but you cannot force yourself to say it?
Yeah, I do. Which is why
that was a little bit of my problem. It wasn't because I didn't know what I was trying to say on a couple of those
didn't
fronts.
Know how to say it, which is why I think you should take some time before you debate next to write the ideas that you have down, so that when you do get stuck like that, you have something to read off of, essentially.
So if I can offer some advice as a guy who's done like 9 debates now, I put the notes that I compiled in the Hangouts chat.
Yeah.
What I do is I figure out what your arguments are going to be, and I figure out how to circumvent them by making notes of my own. For example, I figured you were going to make the California and New York decide argument, so I went ahead and added the populations together and researched that. So I also thought you were going to make an argument about voting fraud, so I went and looked up how much voter fraud convictions we've had. So these are little exercises you can take. Just take a Word document, figure out what the arguments will be, and then respond to those arguments. Build a straw man.
Exactly. So back to the questions. Death Rukin, how do you get rid of King Mob in the one person, one vote liberal man? A lot of question marks after that.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering when I in Death Rukin, if you're in the chat still and you want to re-ask that question, go for it. And maybe make it a little bit more
Did you say King Mob? Is he mob rule?
I guess. Rid of King Mob in the one person, one vote liberal man. Oh, I think he's talking to you. Okay, hang on. How do you get rid of King Mob in the one person, one vote, comma liberal man? Question mark. It's very.
Okay,
weird.
I don't know what a King Mob is. What I assume he means is, how do I get rid of mob rule with a one person, one vote system? And the answer is you use the functions of Congress as it already exists. So we have congressional representation. You have houses of Congress, bicameral. You have the House of Representatives that represent you by district, that represent your interests, protect your interests, and we have a Senate that protects the state's interests. So how do I prevent mob rule? I defer to Congress to protect you from mob rule. I'm simply saying the president should be a national office. I'm not arguing for the separation of powers.
Okay. I hope that answered your question, Death Rukin. Jenny Lynn asks, why do we have districts? And then followed it up with what is the purpose? You seem very well equipped to answer that question. So if you want to take that.
Our founders were stupid.
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I think they did their best in order to.
I think their intention. I would say I think their intentions were in the right place. And especially we got to take into account at the time there was a much different population distribution of the country.
Basically that, yes.
But
the nation has changed since the Constitution was written and our basic democratic society was established. So,
which is basically what my argument is. Why are we relying on 18th century institutions for a 21st century democracy?
So let me pose a question then to the chat if you want to answer this as well. Would it be prudent of us as a society to every so often adjust our, how do I phrase this? Adjust the way that we run our government in the sense that how we elect people or how, because I feel like that would almost open us up to the same gerrymandering issue that we have today. If we just change the way that we elect people all of a sudden. I mean,
so
I mean, government is meant to be extremely slow for a reason, and that is you can't have a very swift hand of legalization or a legal system just because it is meant to be slow. It is meant to be thinking ahead and making sure that everything is copacetic before anything actually does happen. Sorry, so continue.
Well, so the question was, what is the virtues of revamping government as an institution? Is that what my understanding of what you're saying?
Sorry.
Weebo, is that what you said?
Can you repeat that?
Your question is, what are the virtues of revamping government as an institution?
Yeah.
Okay, so I rag on the founders a lot, but I actually fucking love them because they were genius in that they included an amendment process to the Constitution, basically acknowledging that eventually we might have to update our government to meet 21st century needs. Mm-hmm. In fact, this was something they did pretty much immediately out the gate. Once they established the Constitution, they added something called the Bill of Rights. They used the amendment process to add something that they didn't have originally. So to me, getting rid of the Electoral College because it's antiquated is just living out their vision.
I can see where you're coming from with that. That actually makes a lot of sense, and I have to acknowledge that you're right in that instance, that there was the amendment process put in place in the Constitution in order to essentially preempt any changes that we might need to take place, because no form of government is perfect all of the time. And I think we can all agree on that. I think the only thing that we disagree on is how is it imperfect and how can we fix it? And I think
that's basically said what I would say. So,
moving on to the next question. Nessie NG, can a USA president invoke something like emergency powers, like what Emperor Palpatine or Hitler did? Oh my God.
Despite the fact that they're using Star Wars as the example, I'm not going to lie. That is actually a really good question. I'm kind of curious about.
Well, there's actually an answer for it.
Law, right?
Well, in effect, there's something called war powers, which is basically, I mean, you have emergency powers enacted that upend parts of the Constitution all the time. Well, I don't want to say all the time, but we've had it historically happen. Lincoln famously suspended habeas corpus as an example. So it has historical precedent, although I would like to point out that the problem in Star Wars was that the Galactic Republic was composed of a single elite who could decide on the behalf of everybody else, right? Palpatine executes Order 66 without a vote in the Senate. So again, if you don't want to live in the world of Star Wars where Palpatine kills all the Jedi, you want a popular vote system.
Okay. I think I should ask this question because I think the chat is breaking out a little bit. Are you a communist?
No, I just made it very capitalist. Are you fucking stupid? I just made a capitalist argument earlier.
No, because I see a lot of people in chat
and they're not paying attention. If they're asking that question, in all honesty, they haven't paid attention to a word I said, because I made it very clear earlier that immigration was a net benefit to the economy because it allowed low-wage workers to raise the standards of living for everybody else. That is a very capitalist argument.
Well, like you have to remember that not everyone has been here the entire time, so they probably did miss it. But I want
to make fun of them anyway.
I will say, chat, just because someone's got liberal in their name does not make them a socialist or a communist.
Comrade.
Unless it says communist.
That didn't help your case. But what I want to say is there are liberals that can be extremely capitalist, just like there are right-wingers who can be extremely communist. There's no one size fits all for these labels. You know that, right? Anyway. Let's see. Mr. Monkeylint. Lovely name. I like it. Question.
Is that running monkey in disguise?
This one is for me. What do to about illegal aliens and other fraudulent voting? I demand voter ID and no same-day registration. Well, I guess we could ask this question of the rest of the panel. What do you guys think? Voter ID and no same-day registration to kind of do away with voter fraud or what have you?
If you wanted, well, firstly, voter fraud is not a problem, but even if it hypothetically were, the way to do away with it is by automatic registration. Everybody's automatically registered, right? It should be an opt-out voting system, right? If you want to do this by ID, everybody already has a social security number that is unique to them. So I don't see why you wouldn't just make it opt-out, where you register people to vote automatically the second they get their social security number, which is at birth.
And they would just use their their social security number to kind of sign in on the voting ballot or whatever?
Could use that. I mean, states voter precincts already have a database of eligible voters in their area based on the residents who live in that area. So, I mean, this idea that you can just walk in with a voter ID that says Mickey Mouse and cast a vote for whoever you want twice in a certain same area is a fiction. I don't know where people get this from. It's been studied to death. There is no voter fraud.
Okay. Anyone else in the chat have any questions? Remember, I am still compiling them, but we are getting close to the benchmark of time, so that's a thing. Slipknotty K06. If we make this pure majority rule for president, what reason does the president have to address the concerns of the minority opposition? And I think I kind of answered this when I said the president should be more of a national issues type of body of government, whereas state and local governments should address their own town's individual issues that they have. Because I feel like if the national government decides to take on too much, then you've spread yourself too thin. But if you guys want to take this one, by all means.
No, I'm with you there. I'm all about the transfer of power down to the people. So you want a small government, I want it smaller, which is to say I want it, instead of allowing elites like electors to decide on our behalf, I want it to be the people deciding. And I know I'm circling back to the Electoral College, but we live in a representative democracy. So any local issues you have should already be dealt with by local government. The reason I want this is why I want the Electoral College gone, because this is a national referendum on what us as a nation wants. The president shouldn't be caring about what our local issues are. He should be caring about what the country as a whole wants.
Mm. And Mr. Monkey Lint, he was the one with the question that we just had. I don't know if you remember, but his name was awesome. He said identity theft proves your argument false about the Social Security and opt-in voting registration. Yeah. Do you have a
okay?
Just okay.
I have a. I mean, he's never going to believe what I tell him, so I don't know why I should waste the breath. I can give him the studies that have studied this in depth. I can give him George W. Bush's own Justice Department, which cracked down on illegal voting, on voter fraud, and they came away with 86 convictions over a 10-year period. I can give you experts like Lorraine Minute, a professor from Rutgers University in election law, who cites or says that the statistics on voter fraud are statistically zero. So I don't know any other way I can tell you it's not real. You're gonna believe it whatever you want.
Well, I mean, if they do feel the need to continue this argument after we get off air in the next couple of minutes, don't feel like I've targeted you, but I have put your Twitter link in the description. So if you guys want to have that outside the comment section, off the air, by all means, if you have any questions for him, you can find him at, I think it's the LS Project, and there's an underscore somewhere there. The link is in the description though, so don't use my weird at. I put all of it.
If I can, yes, if I can answer Nope's question real quick.
Oh,
he hit it on the nose. Yes, the solution to gerrymandering is something called the shortest split line algorithm. It is the only way that you can function within a constitutional system we already have to make the congressional representation system fairer.
Okay, and nope. I actually did have your question written down. It was just a little bit further down. So don't think I'm ignoring you. We have a few more questions to go, by all means.
Sure.
Sorry.
Is Hey Dude going to answer any of these?
Hey Dude, you got any?
I will. On the last couple questions, I actually kind of missed them. I was looking at a few things that Ira Prostate was saying. A quick note, and then I'll pay more attention to the questions and try to articulate answers. But Irate Prostate, hit me up on Twitter because I got a couple questions about that one thing you said that I responded to. And
okay.
Anyway, proceed.
So Slipknotty K. Oh no, we already answered this question. Sorry, delete that. Frank Castile, how about we vote for freedom and less government? I think I articulated that point pretty well. But comments, anyone?
Agreed.
I really want to know what that even means.
Well, I think it's more of an interpret it how you will question, maybe.
Yeah, I'm all for freedom, but I don't know what that really means. And if we're talking about freedom to share child pornography, well, then no. I mean, we got to be very specific.
All right, fair enough.
Freedom means different things to different people.
All right, I will say that is a good stipulation to keep in mind. Nope. Again, why would we give? Oh no, we already asked that question. Dean Ward, if they commit a crime, should they be deported? This with regards to the illegal immigrants and or immigrants just in general.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Hey, dude.
Yep.
Okay. Nope. This is your question about the short line algorithm, so I'm going to delete that because you already asked it again. Mr. Monkeylint, question: illegal aliens get hired because they can underbid American workers, and there are zero repercussions against businesses. How does this benefit Americans? And I think this was directed at you, SB.
Yeah, that's at me. Mm-hmm. Okay, firstly, there's not zero repercussions. They can get fined for it or even imprisoned. There are federal laws. There's federal law about hiring illegals. Point two, the way it helps is because it cuts down on labor costs for business, which allows them to lower the price of goods. And with the price of goods being lowered, it allows you to buy goods at a cheaper price, which raises the standard of living for everybody. So you can buy more things with your dollar. That's how it helps everybody.
Wait, is he talking about? Is he talking about when they hire illegals because they don't have to pay them the legal minimum wage, or?
Yes.
Well, then, just out of curiosity, maybe we can talk about this on another stream. But what if that were the case? Wouldn't just like abolishing the minimum wage help that out across the board?
No, because there are some wages that Americans won't compete. Okay, so this is hard to explain, but as the level of education goes up for your native population, the likelihood of them working low-wage jobs goes down. So even if they necessarily have, like the only people who are going to compete with illegals in this area are like high school dropouts, low-skill workers. So even if you're eliminating the minimum wage, you're not going to open up the pool of competitive labor to anybody else. It would still just be the same people competing against each other. Now it's a question of who's willing to do it for cheaper, the illegals or the low-skill workers.
Might make an interesting stream, and we can talk about that later, actually. But anyway,
if I can propose this before we do said stream, I recommend you all read a study by economist David Card, who did a study on something called the Mario boat lift, which was an incident where several 100,000 Cuban refugees ended in Miami, and he measured the effects on the economy, basically with having all these low-skill workers suddenly impact the supply of labor in the area, and basically it wound up helping the economy.
What was it? Who was it by?
David Card, and the study is on the Mario boat lift.
Mario boat lift?
Yeah, Mariel.
Okay. Anyway, when Weebo's ready.
Okay. We're gonna just, go through these questions rapid fire because it is past time. But Mr. Misanthropic, how can LSP justify using a system that will shaft the minority of the states and countries in the United States, as it would take less than 500 counties to get elected?
I don't care about the ideological minority in this country. I care about ideas winning on their own merits.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. Malcolm from the North again. This argument really boils down to do you want ideas to win, or do you want your ideas to win, essentially? Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Okay. Just making sure, because it was asked. So I'm going down the list. Again, Mr. Misanthropic. You know that each state does the electoral college system differently. Some use winner-take-all. Some base the electoral votes off of the popular vote. Some do whatever they want. And there's nothing across the board.
Yes. Nebraska and Maine use a district basis, but most other states use winner-take-all. Mm-hmm. There's nothing requiring they all use the same system, but most are winner-take-all.
Okay. Nessie Angie, is there a way for a sitting president to get emergency powers? Wait, hang on. Did we already talk about this?
We already did that one.
Sorry. And this is another question about the line thing. And then we're down to the last two. Rich at Arts, can we make it illegal for people on welfare and people who don't have a job and or have a low IQ to be able to vote. You guys want to take that one?
I believe in freedom. We should have more freedom. By the way, people with low IQ shouldn't be able to vote. And by the way, if you're on welfare, we should deprive you of every right. Do you people not see how this is contradictory?
I do feel like that is a little bit contradictory.
Okay.
No, you're fine. I have to agree with your whole if they've paid the debt to society with regards to felons. And I have to say that if person is paying taxes, also like if they have if they pay taxes into the state, then I feel like they have more of a legitimate say in government than those who don't necessarily, which makes sense to me. But does have anything else to say about that? I can delete that question. We can go on to the next one, which is from the same person, by the way. Actually, it's the same exact question. Never mind. Forget I said it. And with that, we're out of questions.
Okay.
So remember, everyone's links are in the description. If you feel the need to pursue the issues further with the debaters, you have my links as well, are also in the description. Thank you, debaters, for choosing me as your moderator and for letting me host for you. I had fun.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're the man, Weebo.
Oh, thank you. That was a trap joke, and you didn't even get the inside joke when we were talking about it earlier. But
okay.
And thank you, chat, for coming out and watching us and having your questions ready. Y'all did well. And I think that's it. There's a dog barking in the background, but that's cute.
That's
anyway.
fine.
So, and without further ado, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out and having fun on this lovely Sunday evening. Toodaloo, bitches.